This is All Things Ansys, a podcast from the technical support staff at PADT. Episode 65, Thoughts and Suggestions from Ansys Simulation World, and a look at the news and events in the world of Ansys. I'd like to welcome our listeners to another episode of our little podcast. Well, there's a lot going on out there in the world, but that's not the focus of this podcast, so we will turn to talking about all things Ansys. And Ansys continues to lead the way out there. Do check out the COVID-19 page. We talked about it 2 episodes ago, but there's been some simulations, including an ultraviolet virus killer for aircraft and a look at how airflow works with the ventilation system in an airplane when you sneeze or cough, and should help you decide where to sit in said plane. So check that out. And they keep adding stuff to it all the time as customers and academic partners do more simulations. So Google Ansys COVID-19 challenges, and that'll take you right there. I recommend checking that out on a regular basis. Today, for our interview and discussion, we're going to talk about Simulation World. So this week was our first, for many of us, virtual user group meeting, and definitely for Ansys, the first virtual user group meeting. So they had over, I think it was 45,000 people register for this event. I don't know how many people actually showed up. We'll find out. But there were a lot of people there listening to presentations and interacting with each other through chat and rooms. It was a really cool event. So we decided we would talk about it. I got both the Ansys sales and technical support team to come to have a discussion about it, and hopefully you'll enjoy their perspective on it. I do have to make a confession. One of the reasons why I got so many of them to show up is when I sent out the invitation, I didn't actually put in the title podcast recording. I just said discuss Simulation World. So they all showed up ready to have an internal discussion. And then I said, welcome to our podcast. And they were all a little bit surprised. But they did a fantastic job and they shared their thoughts anyway. And I think both from a lot of different perspectives, you'll see what was good about the event and hopefully encourage you to check it out if you haven't already. Welcome to our post-Simulation World discussion with both the PADT technical and sales team. So we've got a big group of folks here to join us to talk about our, for most of us, our first virtual trade show. I think a couple of you had gone to one earlier in the week that was a smaller one. Let's just go around and I'll give you your first name and you can just say who you are and what you do for PADT. And I'm going to go alphabetically here. Brian.
Sure. This is Brian Benbow. I'm an account manager, Southern California, Ansys with PADT.
Cool. Dan?
Ansys account manager, Arizona.
Nice. Heather?
Hi, this is Heather Dean. I am the Ansys account manager for Utah and Colorado.
Fantastic. Joe Woodward?
Hi, I'm Joe Woodward. I'm senior mechanical engineer and lead trainer for PADT in Arizona.
Matt.
I'm Matt Sutton, and I am involved in the services group doing simulation services and then also customization work.
Miles.
Hi, Miles Adkins, application engineer in Arizona.
Fantastic. Ted?
This is Ted Harris, Simulation Support Manager here at PADT and longtime Ansys user over 3 decades now.
And last but not least, because his name begins with a W, Will.
Will Kruspe, account manager for Northern California and also acting account manager for Texas.
So I'm just opening it up. This was, for me, it was my first virtual event. What are your impressions about doing a trade show virtual? Anybody want to start the discussion?
I'll start the discussion, Eric. This is Brian. I think it's actually a pretty good insight into what is possible. I think, the number of registrations, the way they were able to put this thing together pretty quickly. I was amazed at the level of organization and the presentations, the way they were able to put them out. And so I think it is a good indication of what you can do virtually in the future.
Good point. Anybody else?
This is Will. I'll jump in. I've worked on the marketing side before, and I know how hard it is to capture leads physically at a trade show. So in this way, digitally capturing leads is one way to scale it. And everybody that's joining that conference all has something in common. Most of them are, in or they're interested in simulation. So that's sort of a common ground that everybody shares. So I think from that standpoint of things, it could be effective, later on.
Cool. Now, the engineers on the call, you guys attended some of the presentations. How was that compared to sitting in a conference room?
This is Matt Sutton, and I attended a few of the presentations. I actually enjoyed being able to sort of jump in and out as needed, and I was also really actually pretty impressed with some of the content, a lot of the content actually, and so I enjoyed it. There isn't anything like being there in person, but of course, obviously in these times, I thought it was a wonderful second way to do it.
Ted, I saw you unmute yourself there.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to attend a whole lot of technical sessions, but I mean, as far as, compared to a live event, I mean, it wasn't that much different, right? Because you had a speaker and you had slides they were going through. I guess one difference is you could not see who else was watching a given presentation. So that was kind of different, but, being able to sit in the comfort of your own home while you're doing it, that was, kind of nice.
One thing I liked, I don't know if you guys took advantage of it, was we could do chat while the person was talking. And that was kind of, some people were just saying hi, but on a couple of the presentations, we had some kind of technical side discussions that were kind of cool. Miles, did you want to add something?
Oh, I was going to say that I appreciated the ability to watch them on demand. So, usually in an in-person conference, you kind of have to pick and choose, if there's multiple sessions occurring at the same time, and you weren't really restricted to that with the virtual conference. You could get in all the sessions that you were interested in.
Yeah.
This is Joe. I was going to make the same point. I was actually able to watch a bunch of sessions while still manning the booth, which you can't do at a full trade show. But then now the links are still there to go back and watch them on demand still.
That's a really good point, because when you've got multiple tracks, right, and you want to go to the fluent meshing one, but you also want to go to like the Ansys mechanical customization, and they're at the same time, right? But in this case, you can just pick the one you want to do live. Maybe you want to ask some questions and then go to the other one later at your own discretion. So that was a real positive. Did anybody get a chance to try and socialize? Did that chatting or hanging out any booths or anything? I tried. I said hi to a couple people, but that didn't work out as well as I'd hoped.
I chatted a little in a couple of the lounges, the simulation lounge. Chatted a little bit there, but that was about it. It was just a little hard to see all the chats going by and see who was actually there. Try to catch people in the lounge at the time.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the problem I have. Is somebody I knew would say something and I would say hi, and by the time they read it, by the time I said hi, they were gone. So that's when we get to the suggestions part, we'll have to come back to that. So the other thing I wanted to really know is I know I've got a couple I need to go back and look at that I didn't get a chance to see live, but what was everybody's favorite presentation? Mine was Ajay's. I thought the fire and vigor and just, he fired me up. It's hard to get inspired about this nerdy stuff, and he did it. So it was really cool. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I thought his was great. I actually watched it twice. I watched the one the night before for the in India. That version.
Were they different?
No, it was the same.
Okay. Cool. Matt, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, mine was actually Tom Hughes, professor out of Austin, doing it was on the LS Dyna side, but his ability to go into depth, into the technical depth was wonderful. But then his capability of explaining it and is sort of making his case was really good. So I thoroughly appreciated that one.
Cool. Ted?
As a racing fan, I really enjoyed the autonomous talk by the gentleman from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There was some really nice history of the Speedway, the Indianapolis 500. There was a nice comparison of that being the world's largest sporting venue, and comparing it by having other sporting venues, pictured inside it, and then just all the information on the autonomous racing series that they're working toward for next year.
That's pretty cool. I have mixed feelings about that. As a former racing fan, as you know, the fact that the technology is going to be amazing that they use for that, but the butt and the seat and the human, it'll be interesting to see. That's a whole other podcast. Anybody else got a favorite?
Are they going to have autonomous viewers?
I'll
just have the races we won't even know about.
Yeah, we're getting the science fiction. Yeah. Anybody else have a favorite out there?
I like the lung modeling presentation from Ohio State. That was a really good one.
Another one that I really liked, and I think, Matt, you saw it as well, was the national labs are basically putting together an HPC stack. So codes like Ansys can run on it and have these common sets of tools across these. They're building these gigantic, massively parallel computing systems. And so they're putting together all the software and stuff and tools that are needed to do that consistently across platforms. And it was a really interesting look at how far that's come from Linux, basically, right? So that was a cool one.
Yeah, that was the exascale.
Yeah, exascale. Yeah.
A billion operations a second.
Yeah. All right. If nobody has any others that were their favorite, I'll move on. And I always like to ask this one as your boss and not as the moderator of this. What did you learn? What value add to PADT was there? Just kidding. Was there something? The big thing for me was learning about the whole exascale project, which I didn't know about. Anybody else learn something new and different that they didn't know?
I'll touch on, the panel with the CTOs from several of those prominent companies. It's not that I learned anything new, but it kind of reinforced what we constantly talk about, the impact, especially from a C-level, the impact that simulation has on a company and just how it allows them to solve their technology problems and stay leaders in their industry. I thought that was really cool. And they're really well spoken, so just learning that C-level perspective was really neat.
That's a really good point, because for me there wasn't too many new things, right? Because we stay pretty plugged in, so it's not like, I didn't know we could do that. But the reinforcing maybe what we've been saying as an aspirational thing for a couple of years, and seeing people do it. The CTOs are a great example of them doing digital twins, not having a pilot program, not talking about how digital twins in the future will be useful, but this is our digital twin. Was it Baker Hughes, I think, talked about how they use that and additive manufacturing to design their drill bits. And this is a real world, in the ground today example of the stuff that maybe 5 years ago was kind of aspirational. So I thought that was a real eye opener for me as well. Will?
One thing I saw that was interesting, I can't remember who it was. I think it was like Texas Instruments or somebody around that regard. But they were working on ADAS and autonomy, and they gave basically a presentation of their hardware in the loop type of simulation that they do. So it touched on a couple of things. It touched on running simulations in the cloud, testing and validating ADAS hardware and autonomy. So it had a lot of touch points to stuff that's relevant to us, at least in the Ansys platform.
Mm-hmm. Did any of you guys see the Ericsson presentation on 5G? Go back and watch that one. So
I watched that one.
Did you watch one? Yeah.
Yes.
So, there's a lot in 5G. There's a lot of hardware in 5G, which excites us as a simulation people. Both electromagnetics and thermal and stress and even wind loading, right, for antennas and things. Thermal as well for fluids. But I was surprised. I didn't really understand the architecture behind the whole network and this idea of a lot of the computing going on very local to where the signal is being read, and this idea of micro clouds that he talked about. And I think there's going to be a lot of simulation challenges because they're going to have these small kind of independent nodes that are part of this network. So I really like that one. I can't wait till it's here as well. I can't wait till I have that kind of bandwidth. But they're promising almost no latency, which is huge. Okay, we'll move on. So the last question really, for those of you who are listening, we were also asked by Ansys to give them feedback on what we could do. They could do better. And I'll preface I'll say before I ask the question that for those of you that listen to the previous podcast, Lynn talking about how quickly they put this together, basically from scratch to, what was the final number? Did you guys see that LinkedIn post? Was it 40-some thousand people?
It was 54 plus.
54,000 plus people registered for the event. So hats off to them, man. That's not putting it together in marketing and getting 54,000 people to sign up is pretty impressive. But there's always room for improvement. And so one of the things I thought we would kill two birds with one stone and have the discussion here on the podcast. What would you guys change about the format? Any suggestions?
I have no clue how I would do it, but if there was a way to somehow make it easier to socialize,
yep.
that would be my suggestion, or focus. Everything else was great.
Because I go to these events for two reasons. One is to get to learn new stuff, right? Go to the presentations, learn what's new with Ansys, learn how customers are using it, think of new applications, learn new technologies that people present. But also to build meet people that I may talk to, maybe people that read the blog or listen to the podcast, or that we've talked over email, and actually meet them in person. And that, for me, we got to figure out a way to do that. I totally agree. That was the biggest missing part for me. Anybody else got a suggestion?
I would think the having the booth chat, that was great. But if the people didn't actually go to that page or that button, then they didn't see it. So I think they just needed to have a static window in the booth view that just ran the chat, so that people would see it right off the bat.
Right. Because people would stop and say hi, but if we weren't looking right at the chat at that time, like we were over in another window, we couldn't see it and they were gone. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Well, and I think we said hi to people that came into our booth, but they didn't see that at all.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Maybe just having a window that's open, that's your chat, and as you move into a different room or different booth, the connection changes. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. We also have anything else format wise?
Yeah, I'll comment. So it did add an extra layer, a barrier of communication, just having to send a request to chat. And like you mentioned, multiple windows open at once. Somebody might have been in a talk track where I was, requesting to speak with them. So I didn't get a whole lot of interaction in that way. And I'm a people person. I am most definitely a people person. And during these times, it's definitely a struggle for me. I love interacting with folks. I love getting to hear their background, their stories, their challenges. And I would just also aside from the format, so I just encourage people to interact. I mean, yes. Giving people that attention that we so lack.
Yeah, and a couple of listeners to this podcast did a shout out, but it was to us through chat, but it wasn't in our booth or any of the lounges. It was while a presentation was going on, I would say, hi from PADT. And a couple would say, hey, love the podcast, while someone else was talking. So I think we need to, we're engineers, right? We need to work on that socialization thing, but I totally agree with you. And maybe there's some technological solutions. Any other other suggestions for like maybe on the content? Was it too technical, not technical enough? More training? What would you like to see?
I think there was a good amount of technical data. Some of it was, people go to trade shows to sell. So
yeah,
I think you always end up with some commercials type presentations, but I think overall it was a good mix.
Yeah, the LS Dyna side was, of course, they've been doing this for a while, right? So there's a lot of very technical papers. And unfortunately, Jim couldn't join us today, but Jim's our key LS Dyna user, so he attended those and he said they were fantastic. So that I think I would like to see more how-to papers presented, like getting into the nitty-gritty of here's how I built my model, here's the parameters I used, here's why it didn't converge, here's how I fixed it. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, they might want to kind of break it out as a technical track versus a more sales-oriented track.
Yep. For the people that want to go to that, some people don't, right? But I think that would have been a good improvement. Anybody else got any suggestions? What do you guys think about if PADT did trade? Since our territory is not just the Four Corners states anymore, we've got getting customers even after COVID, getting customers to travel from Texas and California and Arizona to one place, and all the states between Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico, blah blah blah. To travel to one place is kind of tough, just because of the cost. Do you think we should try doing user group meetings this way in the future?
I think it could work.
Yeah. Brian?
Yeah, that was kind of related to my earlier comment, was that, there were some definite hiccups in the way this simulation world took place. But if we could figure out a way to iron out some of those things, like Heather mentioned, like Dan mentioned, like you mentioned, make it easier to socialize and dialogue with people. I mean, you could have these multiple times throughout the year. Like you said, it definitely reduces the cost, and they're easier to execute than trying to convince people to gather in one region of the country. So I think, if you figure out how to make the socialization part easier, it's definitely something that could benefit.
Cool. Yeah, and of course, Brian lives in Southern California, so the fact that he doesn't have to get in a car and drive somewhere is a lifesaver. So
exactly. Exactly.
Anybody else got any thoughts on that, or any other things you want to discuss before we wrap it up? Well, I appreciate it, everybody. Oh, Miles, I just saw you come off mute. What do you want to say?
I think we're glossing over the fact that VR headsets exist and trade shows are expensive.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there.
I like the way you think. Even just the cardboard box you put on your phone, right? Yeah.
Well, then you can, I guess, having more of a physical presence in a virtual environment. That's what I'm kind of getting at.
I like that idea. Yeah.
What about like The Sims?
Yeah.
We all have an avatar and we walk around.
Exactly.
I was kind of, I forgot about that, Dan. I think you're right. I kind of forgot about that. Early on, I was hoping that's what it was going to be. Is that when they said you were in a lobby, that we'd be able to design our own avatar. Like, I'll admit here in front of all our listeners and you guys that I play Animal Crossing. And sometimes my friends come to my island and we hang out. Why can't we do that why can't we do this in Animal Crossing next time? There, I lost everybody. They all quit. My boss plays Animal Crossing.
I don't know what that is, so no comment.
You're better off for it. You're better off for it, Ted. Okay. I think that's it. Anybody, any parting shots or words of wisdom before we take off? I don't think so. Okay. Well, again, thanks all.
I had one, Eric, and it's really something that you had said. This is really the first full Ansys conference for all products since I think 2008 was the last one.
You are right, and it was just CFX and Ansys, right, back then. Maybe Fluent.
Fluent. They had just, I think, signed the ink on the Ansoft.
Okay, you're right. Yes,
because the the head of Ansoft was one of the speakers. I remember that.
Yeah, 2008. Wow, 12 years ago. So I'm hoping this will allow us to do international conferences every year, and I think the other takeaway from your guys' comments is really well done. The one thing to fix is figure out how to socialize more, and I think avatars and virtual reality, that's the way to go. I totally agree. All right. Thanks, everybody. It's Friday here when we're recording this, so I hope everybody has a fantastic and safe weekend, and we'll see you guys soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks.
If you did miss all or part of the event, no worries. Go to simulation-world.com and click on the Watch Now button. You can register there or sign in if you've already got a login. Do check it out. One thing that we did learn is some of us couldn't find our login information. What we found is if you go to the login and you click Forgot Password, just put in your email address. If you're registered, it'll send you an email and you can log in that way. It was fantastic. I also want to give a big thanks to our listeners who gave us, who stopped by the booth to say hi. In presentations, you can chat during the presentations. We would say hi. People would say, hey, we love the podcast. And even, especially during Ajay's presentation to the Western Hemisphere, I said hi, and a couple people said they love the podcast. So I really appreciate that. It really was a real treat to see that. And after thanking you all for being so nice, I'm going to try and sell you something. It's commercial time. Please consider PADT as your Ansys supplier if you are in the southwestern U.S. and for simulation consulting and customization. We're also just as good at additive manufacturing and product development. So give us a try. We love what we do, and our customers tell us that we are good at it. Let's talk about the Ansys stock. If you follow the stock market, you know that we were at kind of a high a week or two ago, and then it's more recently kind of taken a little bit of a dump. That's true for Ansys as well. It got up to 290.75 on June 8th. So that's just $9 under their all-time high of $299. So that's really good to see that recovery. Even with this little adjustment, they're still pretty high. Since then, it's gone down to 270.27. So along with the rest of the market, that puts Ansys up 5.18% for the year, and the S&P 500 in contrast is down 5.89. If we look at some of the sector stocks that we usually look at, Autodesk, PTC, and Dassault, Autodesk is actually up 20.55% for the year. A big turnaround for them. In fact, they had their all-time high, as far as I can tell, on I think it was June 10th. Yeah, June 10th for them. So that's pretty special. I tried to figure out why, because what's changed. And it looks like they released some numbers that talked about how much of their customer base has been converted to cloud-based subscriptions rather than pay up front. And maybe we can have a podcast about the pros and cons of those two different business models from the user's perspective. But from the software company's perspective, those subscriptions are fantastic, and Wall Street loves them because it's regular revenue. So that's probably what happened there. PTC is down for the year only 0.36%, and Dassault is down 0.88%. So in the noise range. So they're pretty much where they started the year, which is a good recovery. They were both higher before this little downturn recently. And as a reminder, Ansys is up year to date by 0.18%. So we'll see what happens next. Who knows? Who knows what's next? Maybe Yellowstone will blow, and then everything will be different. In the Ansys news world, Ansys launched their Art of Simulation contest. So this is asking for images of cool simulations. And if you can show your models, please do submit. It's fantastic. And we highly recommend that you check it out when they release the images. The deadline is October 2nd to submit. Public voting, so we get to give our voice of what we like, begins October 19th and ends November 13th. Winners will be announced at the beginning of December. And we'll definitely follow that on the podcast because we're excited about it, and we will share it with you. The other news that they put out since the last time we talked is that Ansys partnered with a company called Electromagnetic Applications. It's actually a company we know and have worked with in the past. Very smart, capable people. And what they did is they released a design validation workflow for cable harnesses. So these are basically bundles of cables that are signal cables and power, right? So how much crosstalk and signal integrity loss is there in these harnesses as they move throughout a structure of some kind? And usually an aircraft is what we care about. So if you do that sort of thing, especially in aerospace, check out this new tool. I think it's going to save a huge amount of time and effort modeling these problems and identifying and fixing problems with cable issues, cable harness issues. We don't have any PADT news to share. Ansys blog as well. I don't really have anything to share because they did post quite a bit, but it's all about Simulation World or the stuff we've already talked about, like the cable harness package. In the PADT blog, we actually had 3 go out since the last time we talked, and maybe 2. I can't remember if I covered the first one, but if I did, I apologize. Josh Stout wrote an article called An Ansys OptiSlang Overview and Optimization Example with Ansys IcePack. As the name implies, what he did is he showed what you can do with OptiSlang by hooking it up to an Ansys IcePack model. And so it's a great example of using that optimization tool. And everybody should check that out. We should all be taking a look at OptiSlang as a much more powerful optimization tool than what we probably use now. Ted Harris wrote a simple adjustment to fix a contact convergence problem in Ansys Mechanical. So as many of you know who use Ansys Mechanical, it gets really frustrating when your model's all ready to go and then it diverges because your contact's not converging. This is a really cool little trick, or I don't know a trick, but just a little fix to help solve that problem and get it to converge faster. And then Nathan Huber wrote an article called What I Use Most for My Engineering Management Master's Degree. So if you don't know Nathan, he is one of our CFD experts, but he also does project management. And a couple of years ago, he decided to go back to school and get a master's degree in engineering management. And it's been really a degree for PADT as well. So he's been sharing with us what he learned and helping us do a better job at project management. It's a real important differentiator for us. We're pretty good at it, and he's helped to make us even better. So check that out. We've only got one event coming up. We have a webinar called Combining Simulation with Additive Manufacturing to Optimize a Product. So we invite you to join us for that. It's at 10 o'clock on June 17th. And it should be a great discussion about combining 2 of our favorite things, which is simulation and additive manufacturing. We don't have anything else scheduled. The bottom line is that all of our we were. I think everybody thought we would be able to do face-to-face events by June, and that's not happening. So they all got pushed back to September and October. That's pretty much it. So I want to thank everybody for attending. And again, thank you sincerely for the shout outs at Simulation World. Hopefully, now that we know what it's like, we'll figure out ways to maybe do a meetup or meet some of you there during the event next time they do it. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at www.padtinc.com/opt-in and spread the word about the podcast. We'd love to have more listeners, and don't hesitate to reach out. And as we like to say these days in the world of COVID-19, stay smart, healthy, and safe, and then productive. Thank you for joining us for the All Things Ansys podcast, episode 65. As a reminder, this podcast is not affiliated in any way with Ansys Inc., and the opinions expressed are those of the people on the show only and not of their current or former employers. For more information, visit www.padtinc.com/blog, and please share your thoughts and questions through an email to podcast@padtinc.com. See you next time.